All right. Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of No Name Sports Talk. I'm your host, Glenn Novak, here with my two friends, Jacob Robin and Sam Birch.
How's it going?
Uh,
So, we're going to be doing an overview of the Super Wildcard Weekend, all the 6 games that happened over the past 2 days. So,
yeah, I can start us off. We're just gonna go by game and then just do a little bit of a recap. So the first game of the weekend was the Bills at the Colts, or the Colts at the Bills. Main takeaways from this game: the Bills have continued to look good recently, and they stayed good in this game. Um, they seem to have control of the game throughout most of the game. But the Colts did show battle, and it was in the end just a 3-point victory for the Bills. Um, yeah, Josh Allen looked good. I know Zach Moss, one of the running backs, got hurt, but Diggs looked good. That offense looks like it's going to be a big threat later in the playoffs.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think the Bills have a great chance at taking down former Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. And I think they legit have a chance to win it all. So um, I was very impressed by Josh Allen's performance. That one play that he made in the red zone, I don't really remember what series it was, but it was a designed quarterback run, and he got stuffed, but then created something. He was very creative and literally flipped it to the tight end. I was very impressed by that. I think the Bills really have a chance to be a threat in the AFC, which is such a very competitive division. Um, what were your takes about it, Glenn?
um, I thought the Bills started off a little bit cold, but then as it got into the second quarter, Josh Allen started making plays with his feet and his arm. So, I think they overall did great, but it was a little bit of a slow start. And the Colts, they had control with the run game, but Josh Allen just kept making great plays after great plays when
Yeah.
when Jonathan Taylor kept running the ball.
And we know you love Jonathan Taylor because he was on your fantasy team.
Yep.
All right. So what was your takeaways about the Rams Seahawks game, Glenn?
I thought the Rams played very good defense, and you saw Jalen Ramsey against DK Metcalf, where like Jalen Ramsey has been shutting him down all season long in the past 2 games, and he did the same thing on Saturday. I think he only allowed DK Metcalf to have like 2 or 3 catches, not counting the touchdown catch that was off. He wasn't covering him in that situation. It was more of a scramble drill. So it was just a great play by DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson in that situation. But I thought overall Seahawks offense was just they couldn't move the ball. They had issues overall with running the football in key situations, and we really saw that in this playoff game. Their mistakes like overpowered them and caused them to lose. And I think the Rams just played a very good game of offense. They controlled the ball with running the ball with Cam Akers. They had Jared Goff, who just had surgery on his thumb, and he could barely throw the ball about 30 or 40 yards downfield to Cooper Cup, where he just mossed Jamal Adams.
That was an ugly throw. That was such an ugly throw. But while literally a great play by Cooper Cup, that was amazing.
Yeah, I agree overall too. The Rams offensively, the quarterback situation, the John Wolford, he got hurt, I think, on the opening or second series. And then Jared Goff came in. And Goff hasn't looked very good this season, and now he's injured. I think, especially next week, Sean McVay is going to have to help out a lot in the passing game with his scheme. But defensively, yeah, the Rams have been very good. But another note is that the injuries in this game, like Goff and Wolford are injured, Kupp's injured. I know Aaron Donald's injured.
Do we have sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but do we have any news about I just looked up John Wolford's injury. He's currently day to day. But do we have any news about Cooper Kupp or Aaron Donald about their injuries?
I know that Aaron Donald and I can't remember the other player, but they didn't practice today. Jared Goff was a full participant today in practice, though. So he'll be ready on Saturday, I think, for their game.
Yeah, it says here on the Rams wire. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry. On the RamsWire.usatoday.com, it says Sean McVay won't name starting quarterback with John Wolford day to day. So Jared Goff, although he was a full participant, Sean McVay won't name the starting QB. I think that's just because he doesn't want to give away to the defense that he's playing next week, who's going to be the starting quarterback. But I think if you're a defensive coordinator, you're planning for Jared Goff to play.
Sean McVay did the same thing last week of not announcing who's going to play until the very end. But I did want to touch on the Seattle. They, at the beginning of the year, and we'll get to this kind of with the Steelers later, but at the beginning of the year, Seattle looked so dominant. The way Russell Wilson was playing, their defense wasn't very good, but their offense was just so good, almost like Kansas City, that they would just, it seemed like they were the best team, one of the best teams in the NFL. And then also later in the season, they just haven't been as good. Now Russell Wilson has cooled off a lot, and some of the other players have too, but I think that's partially to do with they're running it a little bit more, and they just kind of lost their funk. And I think going into this game, I was worried about that, and it seemed to hold true, where they ended up losing to this Rams team, which hasn't been great offensively, but their defense has been terrific.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at Russell Wilson's stats right now for that game, he was 11 for 27 for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He had a rating of 72.1. So that's not very good for Russell Wilson standards. They only scored 20 points, and they scored only 10 points at halftime. So I don't really think that's how you win football games. They shut them down. If I look at Jared Goff, if you just look at the stats, yes, he didn't play that well. He was 9 for 19 for 155 and a touchdown. But they were able to get the ball in the end zone, and that might have been also because Seattle gave him the ball in that pick six. But they were able to run the ball. Cam Akers had 28 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. They were able to run the ball and run it very well. And Jared Goff just did what he had to do in order to get points and not turn the ball over. And I think that was a key reason why Seattle lost this game. They just could not get something going because the Rams were playing very good defense. They were suffocating them, and their offense, the Rams offense, wasn't turning the ball over and wasn't making many mistakes. So what do you guys think Seattle should do from now on? I know they just fired their offensive coordinator. What do you think they should work on?
So I know Pete Carroll says, he said something about they need to start running it more next year, which I think is just an awful idea. Russell Wilson, while he hasn't played terrific these past few games and this game, he is, I think, easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and
arguably top 3.
Yeah, this the last few years, I think he's really cemented that he's at least top 5 QB. And I think you have to play to that strength of your team. Look at some of the other teams like Kansas City, Green Bay. When you have a quarterback playing super well, you don't need a ton of that, a lot more to go right for your team. You just need to play off their strengths, pass it more, keep scoring points, and then it will be harder for other teams who continue to have or who have possibly worse quarterbacks to catch up with you, and that just makes it you a hard team to beat.
Yeah.
I think we saw that in the first half of the Seahawks in like the first 4 games. They were like passing the ball ridiculously on like first down. And that's how they mostly got their yards because they didn't really have that much of a run game. They were basically pass first, run when you can on short yardage plays. So I would agree with that.
I think Seattle, you guys can argue with me if you want, but I think Seattle has one of the best receiving duos with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They have just developed a lot of chemistry with each other and most of all with Russell Wilson. So if Pete Carroll wants to really run the ball a lot more, I agree with Sam because I think you got to use the chemistry that Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf have with Russell Wilson. Because as you can tell, with like the first 5-10 games, Russell Wilson looked like the MVP of the league. And then it all kind of died off. And I wonder if that was because they wanted to run the ball a lot more. It just seemed like they got figured out. If you guys agree with me on that. So I think they really need to. I think Seattle needs to work on establishing the pass game and using that more as a threat to other teams, because we've seen what they're capable of, and they can hold on to the ball for a long time. You don't want Seattle to hold on to the ball and score points, and you don't want them to, in the fourth quarter, you don't want Russell Wilson with the ball in their hands as well, because you know they can score points. So I think Seattle just needs to work on, just establishing the pass. Sorry, I was trying to. I'm looking at multiple things as I'm talking. I'm looking at different games and scores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing we have to talk about with the Seahawks is how their defense went from like one of the NFL's like worst defenses in the first half of the season, and now they're holding teams to pretty low yards. I mean, you saw Jamal Adams starting to mesh with the defense. Their secondary looked a lot better. They got Colin Dunlap as a pass rusher. So Carlos Dunlap, sorry. But they really just made a 180 in the middle of the season, and it really just shows like how they change from like high scoring to maybe some low scoring games.
Yeah, Seattle's defense in the beginning of the year was going to be historically bad. They were going to set new records, bad records, not good records. So the fact that they turned it around is actually very impressive. I think they should be very proud about that. That could be another thing that Seattle needs to work on. I think they have to work on their defense a lot more. They're giving up a lot of yards.
Okay, I know we have to move on after this, but I just want to add one last thing. I think Seattle's defense wasn't ever that bad. Sure, they were bad in the terms of they were getting beat a lot, which they were bad, but I don't think as a roster they were all that awful or anything. So I think they kind of regressed back to kind of what they were, just an average to below average defense, which I think is good enough if you have a quarterback.
Yeah, I think they need to get pass rush and secondary.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was covering the Tampa Bay Washington football team game, and my takeaway from it was one man, Taylor Heineke. What a performance. The dude was 26 for 44 for 306 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And he had a rating of 78.4. And what if I told you guys, you already know this, but what if I told you that was his, second career start? Something like that. And he played against the Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he literally went toe to toe with him. Finished the game. The score was 31-23. I was thoroughly impressed by Taylor Heineke. He had a highlight play when it looked like he was about to get sacked, and then he scrambled out of it somehow and then dove into the end zone for a touchdown. I can't say anything more about Taylor Heineke. Twitter was going crazy about him, saying how he deserves a chance. I know Patrick Mahomes said he had a very good performance, and a lot of other people were like, this dude deserves to play in this league. I'm just going to talk a little bit backstory about Taylor Heineke. He went to Old Dominion University, I think. Old Dominion University, and he was a fairly decent quarterback there. Let me hold on. Let me give him 1 second. I'm going to search up his college stats. He was a fairly good quarterback. So I believe, I don't know, but is Old Dominion a Division I program? I don't know, but they're in.
It is,
Yeah.
yes, Division One.
So they just added to what conference is this? Hold on. Yeah, they just added the NCAA added Old Dominion University to the Conference USA, which I guess might add them to Division One. But anyways, Taylor Heineke's stats the year that they added him was 3,476 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 16 picks. And that's all I can see on sportsreference.com. But I remember I saw a video about him, and he was like, he won multiple awards, and he also threw like 32 touchdowns to minimal interceptions his whole like 3 years. Like he averaged that. So he was a fairly decent player in college. I know I didn't have a lot information about him for that, but for a guy that was as inexperienced as himself, he played like he was in the league for 5 years. He was seeing the field. He was making the throws he needed to, accurate throws. He was very mobile, and that's something that the football team probably loved more than Alex Smith, because Alex Smith is not really of a mobile guy anymore. And Taylor Heineke was running around, he was making plays. So I was thoroughly impressed. Everyone's calling him a playoff hero. I guess you can say he is a playoff hero to the football team. He didn't win the game, but he almost won the game, and he played like he could have won the game. So I just want to hear your guys' take about him. And do you think Taylor Heineke deserves a chance to be a starter somewhere, maybe? I think he deserves to be a backup at least.
Yeah, I just want to go off a little
Okay,
bit
so
about him.
I wasn't too surprised that he played well in this game. Go ahead, Glenn. Go ahead.
Oh, I can. Well, I remember during the broadcast of the game, Tony Dungy and Mike Tirico, they were talking about all these classes he was taking online while being on the practice squad thing for the football team, and he had to like tell his coaches about what he was doing, like these like high grade math classes. I can't remember what they were called, but they were just totally out of this world for like a football player at his position to be doing. For him to be learning the playbook and be doing online college at home, it's just crazy to me to think about that, because I can barely balance like my life. Sam,
Yeah.
did you
I have a couple things to say about him. So yeah, I have a couple things to say. So for the weekend, he was tied, or he had the best PFF grade for a quarterback, and Tom Brady had the second best grade. And so the thing about Taylor Heineke, he was drafted in 2015. I think he was undrafted, and he's
So
been
too.
around the league. He's been around the league. Like a few teams. I know he was on the Panthers at one point. I know he was
with
an AF.
yeah,
He was with the AAF team.
he was with the
or an AAF team.
I think he got, I don't know, but was he, I think he was with the Patriots. He went undrafted, he went to the Patriots. Then he went to the Vikings, or he went to the Texans. I think he went to, might have gone undrafted to the Texans.
It was,
but yeah, he bounced around. Then he went to like the Vikings, then he went to the Panthers, and then yeah, he went to the AAF.
Yeah, so while I know up to this game, I know he showed some promise, I think a couple weeks ago, regular season, coming in for Dwayne Haskins. And he played great this game. I'm not taking anything away from him, just this game. But my first takeaway from him is that regards of a future job, I think he should be a backup, but not a starting quarterback, because I think there's plenty of examples where you can see these backup quarterbacks coming in and having these terrific games, and you're like, oh, that means he's a starter, right? Well, then the next few games, he's bad again or average.
Yeah, he wears number 9 for the Chicago Bears, and his last name is Foles.
Yeah, so see, there's plenty of guys who like have a really good game or a good stretch of games, and then that makes teams view them, okay, well, now only if they can do it for a little bit longer, which sometimes is the case. So, like, for example, Foles, during the playoff run for the Eagles, he got them all the way to the championship once was hurt. But I think you can take a chance on him as a backup, but I think you have to have another QB in place, not have him as a starter. And then my other takeaway was just kind of how good the Bucs have been, because Washington, coming into this game, they were pretty much a defense in a bad division with just an offense. And good, but they were kind of picked apart by the Bucs. And I think that says a lot about the Bucs offense and the Bucs team as a whole, that they won, and they won pretty comfortably in this game, that pretty much Washington gave it all they got.
Yeah, that's very true. I think Washington has one of the best defensive lines in the league. If you look at their draft picks, they, I think, spent the last 4 draft picks on defensive linemen. So they've pretty much panned out so far. So they have one of the best defensive lines in the league, but that doesn't say anything about their secondary, or I think their linebackers are, you could say average, I guess. I
just wanna,
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Okay. I still think so. Their defense, and so what I mean by that is, like, so many defenses in the league, they can have good weeks, good stretches, but just be like an average defense. Washington, though, with that D line, and I think they're okay everywhere else, brings them up to be like one of those defenses that you kind of consider good. Now they're not on the Rams tier or anything, but they're still good defense. And I think that's something to be said.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say, Glenn, or should we move on to Sunday's game, first Sunday's game?
Yeah, I think we're good on this subject. We can move on to Sunday.
All right, Baltimore versus Tennessee.
Okay. I'll start to move a little bit faster through these because we still want to talk about the games next weekend. But I think this was one of the best games of the weekend. Both teams played well. The Ravens got down early, but they came back, proving a lot of doubters wrong, like that they can't come back from a deficit against a good team because they run so much. But I think they weren't perfect, but they were good enough. I just do want to comment real quick. We can blow right past this after, but the Titans made a couple key decisions that I think could have lost them the game. They punted from their own 40 when they were only down a possession late in the game, and then they also punted from their opponent's 40 in a similar situation, and it was only like a 4th and 2. And then also, so those decisions I think hurt them a lot. And then also, I know Derrick Henry's very good, but he wasn't having success in this game against that Baltimore front. So, because Baltimore was ready for them to run so much. So I think they should have leaned a little bit more on the passing game, with AJ Brown being amazing and Corey Davis being decent, and then having some weapons there. I think if they did that and made a couple better decisions, I think they could have won the game.
Yeah, I think Mike Vrabel is a very smart coach. He's proven to manipulate situations to his advantage, but I think he didn't do a good job on Sunday. I think like you said, could have made some better decisions. Derrick Henry he had 18 carries for 40 yards, no touchdowns. He averaged 2.2 yards a carry, so he was obviously not getting anything done. AJ Brown was, like you said, fantastic. 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. I think Tennessee had a very good chance of. I think Tennessee had a very good chance of coming back in this game, but Vrabel's decisions, and I can't all pin it on Vrabel because I don't know what was happening on that sideline, but I'll just say the Titans. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Sam. I think they made some really questionable decisions.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
just
with the game plan of the Titans, I don't have an issue with them running the ball with Derrick Henry. Like Derrick Henry's probably, if not probably the best running back in the league this year. I mean, he ran for 2,000 yards. So I think you just gotta keep feeding him the ball, and unfortunately, it just never worked out. They never broke out for a big run. But the key situations on the 4th and 1, on like the Ravens 40 for the Titans, it was just a terrible call for not going for it. Instead, they just punted. I think that really just sealed the deal for them in that game.
Yeah, Derrick Henry. Many defenders in the NFL have said that you can. I think the way to stop Derrick Henry, and this is what the defenders have said, you can stop him at the line, but you don't want him to get going. You don't want him to get to the 2nd and 3rd level, because once he gets there, it's very, very, very difficult to get him down. I think you just need a strong line and contain the blocks and make sure that if he bounces outside, that you have strong enough guys to get out there and execute and get him to the ground. And that's what we saw. We saw Derrick Henry not get any long runs, and we saw him really not get to the 2nd level that many times. I don't know. I can't find the stats, but I wish I saw like his longest run. And if
I
I was guessing,
I think it
8
was only
yards maybe.
like eight or 10 yards. I don't think he got a first down.
Yeah.
So
also not just for Derrick Henry, but pretty much for any running back. One way to stop them is just a numbers game. If you stack the box, you're bound to stop them. Even great running backs, a lot of times, since the offensive line helps out so much, if you just have a lot of people in the box, you can stop the game or stop the run game that way. But again,
Yeah.
I thought what the way the Ravens were playing, which was similar to that, I think the Titans should have thrown.
I think the Ravens in the beginning were not ready to play. Lamar Jackson did not look good in the first couple of quarters or first couple series, I guess. That was an ugly pass that he threw that got picked off. Totally underthrown. That was to Malcolm Butler, which is funny because the announcers were talking about Malcolm Butler literally right before the play. They were saying that they were talking about some other corner, and he said he's the second most targeted corner. And they said, guess who's the first one? Malcolm Butler. And then literally next play, Malcolm Butler caught an interception. That was just a really poorly thrown ball, and I think that shows Lamar Jackson's. I know might sound a little harsh, but I think he's got a really bad inability to throw deep and throw outside the numbers consistently. I've seen him do it. I've seen him throw accurate balls, but he's not consistent. I don't think he's a pure passer, and he'll probably never be. But I think his rushing ability will be very good his first couple of years in the league. But once that starts to go down, he's got to find some way to adapt and still be able to throw the ball. So
I think, so his first season in the league, his rushing's pretty much been very similar all 3 years. But his first year, he was just not very good at passing. Like, he showed some potential, and then his next year was obviously his MVP season. He showed a lot of improvement there, and then his running was still fantastic. So of course that led to the Ravens having a fantastic offense. But this year, his passing has been like average. I think his PFF passing grade ranks 17th out of the 38 eligible quarterbacks. But his running game has still been there, and so you can get by with that. But I think it definitely shows that you have to be great in the run game to get by that.
Yeah, you said it. You said completely correct. I think you can get by with having a nice running game, but you got to be able to adapt.
Yeah, I just think Lamar Jackson's just been very inconsistent in his play this whole year. There's been situations where he should have ran, but he threw it for some reason. But then there's a situation where he didn't throw it when the guy's wide open. Then he just ran, barely got a yard. But I think that just happens when you're such a mobile QB and you just want to go for it, but you never really look over the whole situation, and sometimes it costs you in key situations.
So let's talk about my Chicago Bears. Oh God, this was painful. We lost 21-9, and really I consider it a 21-3 loss. With that amazing last second one-handed snag by Jimmy Graham, who just walked off the field in, you could say anger, you could say sadness, and that's pretty much every Bears fan right now. If I look at the statistics, Mitchell Trubisky, I think Mitch actually didn't play that bad. I think he would. If I'm looking at his stats, he was 19 for 29, 199 yards, a touchdown, no picks. He had a quarterback rating of 96.8. And if Javon Wims had not dropped that 40-yard dime on that amazing play, we could be looking at a completely different ball game. You could say Trubisky played very well, did what he needed to do. But if I'm just looking at the team, the Bears, we just got outplayed by the Saints. It was clear we weren't the better team. I knew going into it we were not the better team. But what I had going for myself is we had taken the Saints to overtime with Nick Foles as our quarterback, who is our backup quarterback. And so I thought that meant something, if anything. But clearly, I think the Bears just played conservative offense, and their defense was astounding in the first half, only held the Saints to 7 points. They had turnovers. They're getting pressure. They were stopping the run. They just at some times couldn't stop the pass. Drew Brees just picked that zone defense apart because the Bears run a lot of zone. And I guess you could say that with our second best corner, Jalen Johnson, and um, our best linebacker, Roquan Smith, being out, that maybe it would have been different if they were in that game. I think it definitely could have been. But I just think even if the defense played better than what they did, if we had those two players, I sincerely don't think our offense would be able to get anything done. Um, we saw that the Bears were running a lot of play action, and Mitchell Trubisky was reading half the field. But uh, with all the bootlegs that the Bears have been running since Trubisky was named a starter, you could tell the Saints were prepared and they weren't going to fall for that. So I think they were figured out, and the Bears couldn't recover. And it's very sad to see because when Trubisky was drafted, I was when he was first drafted, I was like, oh, wait, no, I wanted Deshaun Watson. But then I was like, all right, we have a quarterback maybe, and we can maybe get something going. His rookie year was your typical rookie year. And his second year, he was average, and our defense was amazing. And that's all we needed him to be. But then he's regressed, and I think he was unfairly treated this year. I think he was held back a couple times, especially in this game. Um, I think that this showed more about coaching than Mitchell Trubisky, though. And it's sad because I don't think Trubisky is going to be a Bear next year. It makes sense to just move on. But I surely hope that the Bears move on from their head coach and their general manager. And one thing to note, I know the Bears defensive coordinator just retired. I want to get your guys' input on this. I think it was a situation of the Bears talked with Chuck Pagano and said, hey, we want to move on. We want to go in a different direction. Do you want to leave on your terms or our terms? I think he just said he was going to retire. What do you guys think?
That's hard to say. I mean, I would probably think that they were going to make changes. So Chuck Pagano was probably like, well, I'm not going to stay here for these changes. I'm just going to retire and be at home and relax and be a football coach. Maybe he'll come back for a different team if he gets the right spot and he gets the right people around him. That's really it.
Yeah, I have no idea the reason that he retired. But I mean, yeah, I just don't know if they did that or not. I would assume, when I saw it, I just assumed that it was just like, oh, I'm kind of done with football, I'll just retire. But yeah, I had no idea. But in regards to the game, I agree that the Bears were obviously the worst team. But I do want to say that the Saints, I think, while they did look good at times, and they kind of dominated the Bears in some ways, I think they could have looked better, and that has me worried for next year when they're facing the Bucs and how good Tom Brady's been all season, and with that offense and those weapons.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the Bears. We saw that on their big winning streak that they were running the ball to David Montgomery, and David Montgomery turned from made a 180 from beginning of the season to the end of the season. I mean, he became a 1,000-yard rusher, and in this game he only had 12 rushing attempts for 31 yards, and he only averaged 2.6 yards per game per carry. So I think that was a main issue with the Bears was they didn't take. That's how they took over the games and on their winning streak is they ran the ball with Montgomery, and Montgomery got them the yards. And I don't know if that was because of injury, because I remember in the Packers game that he got injured, So I don't know if they're just trying to reduce his touches and that may have just cost him the game.
I don't think so. I think honestly they couldn't run the ball. The Saints have a pretty good defense, and I don't know exactly what number they are in defensive rushing defense, but we could not run the ball. And if we can't run the ball, we can't throw the ball, obviously, because I don't think Mitchell Trubisky is a drop back passer. I think he's a guy that relies on play action. And if you can't run the ball, then teams know that you have to pass. So we couldn't do that either. All I can say is, what a great catch, Jimmy Graham. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so I just wanted to touch one last bit on Trubisky. So the thing about him for the future, I really do think the Bears should move on, unless it's like super duper duper cheap. He has, while his stats have looked good at times and bad at other times, the 2018 season, I think. So okay, I don't know what happened to Matt Nagy when he was hired in 2018. He led that offense who had Trubisky, they had Robinson, they had a few good players. It wasn't anything super terrific. I think you guys had a good O line. I can't remember.
It was average.
And Trubisky, a lot of people say he was average or above average. He was below average that year in terms of a QB. And Matt Nagy got so much out of him because of the scheme. And I don't remember if they were passing more, if they were doing more play action, or what. I just think that that scheme that was helping him so much has pretty much just gone away, and you're just seeing his true colors of Trubisky now. And I think you have to move on from him because he's just not very good.
Yeah, I think honestly he could be a backup somewhere. If anything, if you need a bridge quarterback, he could be a bridge quarterback. I honestly don't know if I can see him starting unless it's at some location that is very good at training quarterbacks. Yeah, I'm just gonna say one more time, thank you for your services, Trubisky. I think we both know that it's time to go our separate ways. And good luck. That's all. If I was Matt Nagy, if I was anyone else trying to explain to him, that's what I would tell him. All right, last game.
Yeah, now it's my turn to be sad because I am a Steelers fan and my team got shut out after I think they had 4 position coaches out on COVID. They had Stefanski out. They had 4 other players out on COVID, and the Browns scored 28 points in the first quarter. That's all I gotta tell you. With all those people out, they put up 28 points, and that's just remarkable to me. It was totally surprising to me, and it was really disheartening to watch. It was, and I think it was just, to me, the play of the game for the Steelers that made them lose was the opening snap where the ball just went 10 feet over Ben Roethlisberger's head. They were running for their lives after the ball and went to the end zone. The Browns scored on the Steelers' first snap, first offense.
That was a great replication on how the game was going to go.
It was, and then
representation.
Yeah, and then just after that, we saw them they just didn't look good. They always never look good in the first quarter or in the first half at all. I think they had the worst opening drive stats in the season, and I think, well, we saw after the botch snap and the defensive touchdown that they ran the ball very good on the next drive, but then Roethlisberger was just trying to play hero ball with it and just lobbed it over the defense, trying to throw it to Benny Snell, and it just got picked off in the middle of the end zone. So, in the middle of the field, not the end zone. And we saw Browns take advantage of the turnovers. I'm pretty sure 21 out of the 20 points scored were off of turnovers.
Oh yeah.
That first quarter, which was just absolutely terrible. I'm just gonna keep saying that over again. And then we just saw the issues of the Steelers from the past 4 or 5 months. They kind of run the ball. They tried doing dink and dunk. Randy Fichtner with the most the worst offensive play calling I've ever seen in the history of play calling, I think.
Unless you're a Bears fan.
Unless you're a Bears fan. But we saw on a 3rd and 1, he did a fullback dive with Derek Watt, and they got it, thankfully. But then he tried doing the same exact play on 3rd and 1, and guess what? It got stuffed. Like, it was just, they were trying to mimic just any play where they got yards on. He thought, oh, I think we just get yards on that play again. And it just turned into negative yards, and it turned into bad plays. And I think we saw the offense do a whole lot better when it was just Ben doing no huddle and getting points off of that and just taking advantage of the defense and giving what they get. And I have to say to the Browns, I have to give a hats off to you guys. You guys did great. I think the Browns are not the Browns anymore. And they are now contenders, I think. Like playoff contenders, not Super Bowl contenders, but this was a very solidifying game for them for not being the Browns anymore. Because there's always jokes about, oh, you guys just went 0-16 like 3 years ago, and now you guys are 11-5, and you just beat the Steelers, who went on an 11-win streak. And Baker Mayfield shows that he can play quarterback and that he can make plays, and that when you have like 2 of the best running backs in the league, or the best running back duo, I would have to say, in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, that you can do whatever you want to the defense, especially with the O-line they have. I remember they said on the broadcast that PFF had Jack Conklin and the right guard for the Browns. They were the number 1 position ranked at their position. And even the Steelers can stop them on run plays, even with bringing back Cam Hayward, TJ Watt. We saw Terrell Emmons miss last week against them, and they just could not stop them on key downs, and it really just cost them the game. And turnovers was also another main part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think you might not like this, Glenn, but I actually think this game and the Bills game was one of the most entertaining games. Because I loved, even though I'm not a Browns fan, there was just some happiness that I took out of it from actually seeing the Browns in the playoffs and then dominating. It was a very cool thing to notice, I guess you could say. Cool I think that's the best term I'm going to use for that. I think it was nice to see the Browns actually doing something, because I've always known them as being a very, very terrible team that can't find a quarterback, can't find a coach, 0-16. And then they had something on the rise. And then who was the coach last year? Freddie Kitchens. And then Freddie Kitchens was a joke. And then they get Kevin Stefanski, who was probably the best hire they could have potentially had. I think with Kevin Stefanski being out, you could see the leadership in that organization. I think Baker Mayfield has been growing up a lot in this season, and a lot of coaching that was planned out very, very well. A lot of things went their way. I'm not going to say that they completely dominated. A lot of things did go their way, that botched snap and overthrown interceptions. The one thing I'm going to say about the team that I think is a very interesting thing is that their defense got kind of picked apart with Ben Roethlisberger. I understand they were down and they had to pass, but Ben Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I thought the Browns' defense was actually a fairly good defense throughout the regular season. But they got picked apart. And if they're going to play the Chiefs, that's going to be very, very difficult because Chiefs can pass. We know the Chiefs can pass. So if I'm just looking at the Browns stats, Baker Mayfield, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 115.2. I thought he played very well. I thought he did what he had to do, and then some. Nick Chubb, 18 carries, 76 yards. He was good as ever. Kareem Hunt, 8 carries, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. What a game by him. And then Jarvis Landry, 5 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown. He's really shown, and it's kind of the next man up mentality with Odell going out. He's really stepped up. So I think that if you're asking me if the Browns have a chance against the Chiefs, I don't think so. I don't know if the Browns have a chance, but I think they can surprise a lot of people. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think the Browns can make it a close game, but that would really depend if they get control of the run game and time of possession. Go on, Sam.
Okay, so my takeaways for this game: the Browns looked good. I don't think it was okay. They looked pretty good. I think a lot of people played well. Their defense played well, and then the Steelers really did not play well until when they had to play catch up. They did that okay, but I mean they never caught up quite enough. The biggest thing worry about for me for the Browns is with Kevin Stefanski being out. He had helped that team so much. There wasn't a ton of turnover from this year and last year. I know they improved their offensive line a lot, but there wasn't a ton of turnover, and the scheme has really helped them this season. And with him being out, I was worried it would be maybe an average scheme, and from what I saw, it was probably it probably was average to above average, and the fact that they succeeded and played well really shows a lot, and I think that helps their reputation. In regards to the Steelers, I thought throughout the season when they were undefeated that they were an overrated team. With people like power ranking them, they have to be first over the Chiefs because they're undefeated. That defense is so good. Blah blah blah. I just think it shows in games like these when the Browns, who are a good team, but I think you can make a case they're one of the worst teams in the remaining 8. I think for you being beat that or not, okay, the game was closer than it initially got out to be, but to be beaten handily by the Browns and the performance that the Steelers put up with all those interceptions and wacky plays, I think it shows you that I don't know if the Steelers were ever a Super Bowl contender. I know they were good earlier in the season, but I don't know if they were ever a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, and I would just like to, since Jacob said thank you, Nick Trubisky, I just want to say thank you to Ben Roethlisberger and Marquise Pouncey. They've been around the team for over 10 years. Ben Roethlisberger around 17 or 18 years, and he's going to have a tough decision this offseason, and I don't know if he's going to stay with the team next year. I know that there's been already reports about Marquise Pouncey saying that he's going to retire. And we saw well, there was a clip that came out by NFL Films, and it was just Ben and Pouncey just talking. Ben was saying, "I'm sorry to you about this," and Pouncey just saying it's all right. And he said, "I really thought we were gonna get you there." And it was a really sad moment, especially for me as a Steelers fan who's seen those two guys on the field for like the past like 8 years of my life of watching them. And just, it's going to be very weird whenever they leave without seeing number 7 on the field. So I just like to thank him for everything he's done for the organization, lead them to 2 Super Bowl wins and the conference championships, and for the great memories.
Yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer and probably the best quarterback that's played for them. All right, so so and this was already kind of longer than we expected, but we can talk about next week's games and we can just skim over what we think is going to happen. We can go over our predictions and any other news if you guys wanted to talk about it.
Okay. I guess I'll lead us off with the Rams-Packers game. I think while the Rams defense is good, there's too much uncertainty on their offense. And I think the Packers offense is too good with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all that. I think the Packers will win, and I think they could win by a couple scores. But I am not necessarily going to predict that, but I think they will win.
Yeah.
I would say for the
agree
Rams and Packers.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. You can go, Jacob.
No, you're good. Keep going. Just go. You're already there.
Okay.
No, you can go. It's okay.
For the Rams and Packers game, I think it may be close. I'm just, this Rams defense has just been so good against quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. They've really shut down these quarterbacks, and maybe the Lambeau cold will make them feel uncomfortable. I think Aaron Rodgers will get some good plays off, and but I think it may be a close one. I know that people have been saying like they think it's gonna be a blowout, but I think it might be 1 or 2 possession game.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to agree with both of you guys. I think the Rams defense can prove something, but there's just too many questions on the Rams offense. Ravens Bills. This is probably going to be one of the best games of the weekend. I really want to see the Bills win this game. What was that?
A top 4 game.
Yeah, this is going to be a very haha, very funny. This game is going to be one of the best games, probably one of the most entertaining games. I really want to see the Bills win this. However, I don't know exactly how they'll be able to stop Lamar Jackson. I can totally see an upset if you think the Bills are going to win. I can see the Ravens coming in and totally turning that around with Lamar Jackson. The way they need to do is just contain him, and I think if you just contain him, stop the run, you got to rely on his passing. We've already talked about how inconsistent he is, but if you're asking me, I'm going to say the Bills pull it off, but narrowly.
I'm going to say the Bills pull it off too. Here's my reason why. Like we said earlier, Lamar Jackson has been not terrific throwing the ball this year and isn't terrific overall at throwing the ball. I think the Ravens offense will have some success, but I think the Bills offense will also have success. And with these two smart teams, I think Josh Allen right now is playing at the level.
We are having some technical difficulties at this time. Sam's headphones seem to be not working, and he seems to look very confused. It's now time to make fun of Sam. Ha 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 ha.
Can you hear me?
And we're back. You gonna
Are you ready, Sam?
talk?
Okay, so sorry. Okay, quick side note. My headphones have been. I know I put myself on mute. I knew I was on mute, but my headphones have been acting up throughout this.
You're good.
Anyways,
You're good. Keep
I think
going.
I think Josh Allen will prevail. He's been. I think he's so good in the passing game, and with these two teams being smart, I could see each of them winning, but I think the Bills will pull it off.
Yeah, I would have to. For me, I would have to pick the Bills too because as I'm looking at the overall like how they do on offense and defense and passing and rushing, the Ravens have the 32nd ranked pass defense, which I don't think is very good. And especially when they go against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Davis. I can't remember his first name, but
I think it's Gabriel.
Gabriel Davis, and then Dawson Knox. I don't think that matchups very well for the Ravens, but I think that my predictions, I would say it would probably be a very high scoring game, like probably above 30. Like, but I would have to go with the Bills in this situation with them having home field advantage. I think that gives them a huge advantage, especially
I
with
can
the home
see
crowd.
I can see the Bills scoring 30 points and the Ravens scoring like 28. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I think it'll come down to the wire.
Yeah, they're both good offenses. I'm just going to take the better quarterback in that situation. Okay, next Browns Chiefs. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think the Chiefs will win handedly. Although it could be close, that quarterback, that offense is just too good. I think the Browns defense. I don't think they're anything terrific. I know they played well this past game, or at least in the beginning. I think the Browns offense can hold or keep pace with the Chiefs, but I'm not going to rely on that. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. Although if the Browns do pull it off, I would probably credit to Baker Mayfield in the offensive passing game really stepping up and maybe some good fourth down decisions in there.
Yeah, I think the Browns defense, I'm sorry, is decent, but I trust Andy Reid more than any other coach to come up with some scheme to combat their defense. So I think the Chiefs, with just all the firepower they have and all the weapons, they'll win with. I can honestly see a 3-possession game, at least 3-possession lead at least.
I would have to say that I think that the Chiefs will start off slow because we saw that happen last year against the Texans. I don't think it'll be as huge of a gap as last year. But I think it'll be like pretty similar, like 1 or 2 possession. But I think the Chiefs will dominate after the first quarter, first half. And I think they'll easily beat the Browns by 1 or 2 possessions.
Mm-hmm. So last game is Buccaneers and Saints. This is probably another one of those games that's going to be very entertaining. However, I can see the Bucs winning this game. I can see Drew Brees. I can see this being Drew Brees' last game. I think the Bucs have a lot more talent on defense and a lot more talent on offense. We've seen, though, that in the regular season, the Saints dominated. I think that gives the Bucs a little bit more fire in their, fire in their behind to get something going and actually come out with aggression and getting into the end zone and get points, touchdowns, not field goals. I can see him scoring a lot of touchdowns in this game. I got the Bucs winning this one.
Yeah, I do too. And for the reason that I was talking about earlier, that Tom Brady has been really good this year, and that those weapons that they have on offense are just really, really good. And Tom Brady can use those weapons to keep pace, and I think beat the Saints. I know the Saints are favored. I think that's partially because they're at home. And I do want to say about the Saints that they have a really good roster overall. Like, there's not a lot of spots where you can point to and say like, oh, that's a weakness. But I think the quarterback, like, while saying Drew Brees has been okay this year, I got to take Tom Brady in this game, who's led an offense that has been unstoppable lately.
Well, it looks like I'll be lone wolfing my game pick I'm picking the Saints over the Bucks. I think that it's just with the past matchups that we saw between both Tom Brady and Drew Brees, I think it may be closer, but I don't think we've really seen a difference in the Buccaneers and how they play over the past few weeks. I think it'll probably be the same thing. So I think Saints win by 2 possessions, and Drew Brees makes it to the NFC Championship game.
Okay, I think that's all the games. I'm sure next week we can we'll probably recap the games over the weekend, and then the following week we'll preview the Super Bowl. And then yeah,
That's
I
the end
think
of the season.
yeah. um,
Talk
I'm
about
not
next year.
sure. I know we've talked about this, but I'm not sure what the exact schedule will be. I'm assuming it will be like once a week or around something like that. But yeah, I had a fun first podcast.
Yeah, I learned a couple things during this time. So thank you to whoever's listening.
The two of you.
Yeah. And thank you. Like, comment, subscribe. The two of us.
God.
See you guys later.